what are some of the roadblocks to coalition building that you've seen, Case? Because you are sort of in you are friendly in both camps, more radical camps and more, progressive or even liberal camps that you're friendly with. So you hear, so what? How do you? So we all have Medicare for all. Let's use Medicare for all because it's something we all want. What do we do? How can people who say I'm not supporting the Democratic Party under any circumstance, I'm supporting Cornel West, for example, how do those people coalition just on this topic? So we're not in coalition and community for everything. One topic, single issue coalition, Medicare for all. Like how is that? How do you do that? Case, if you could take that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And once we can master this, we're going to go far. That's how I feel about this. One of the things, we had various opportunities, and I think it was touched on a little bit earlier in the stream. There were various opportunities for the left to come together, galvanize, and around something. People who blocked each other, people who don't speak to each other, curse each other out. When there's an opportunity arises for us to come together, we need to take advantage of that. So the Medicare for All marches, whether or not you thought that the people organizing it were amateurs, because when they first happened and they did it in the different states, I believe that's the first time that organization did it. But at least don't poo-poo it. At the very least, support it with your silence if you're not going to go. But at the most, go. Bring the organizers onto your show, onto your platform, whatever you're doing, and help promote it, because that's something that we all support. Then we had the Medicare for All march in Washington, D.C., another opportunity for us to coalesce who believe in Medicare for all, whether you think you're on the boutique left or whether you're on what they call the dumb left. I like that new smart left that Nick's been talking about.
No, I like the fact that you're using the slur to describe, because you're equally giving, you get what I'm saying? Like use dumb, and I like how you use the boutique. But go ahead, sir.
I call it the whole left ecosystem, because we all play our part in this left ecosystem. Malcolm X couldn't be Malcolm X without MLK. MLK couldn't go to LBJ and say, hey, there's this guy Malcolm X that you don't want to deal with him, so you got to deal with me. So I think we need more people pushing on the outside and people who do not compromise. We need more of that, because that's what FDR had with the communists and the socialist parties. They had millions of members back in those days, and we're nowhere near that. So we need more of that. But back to us coalescing together, I want to go to the candidates now, because this is something that we haven't seen every cycle that goes on. I always wonder why the Libertarians and the Green Party do not have a debate with each other, and maybe have 3, 4, 5 debates on different topics. So I want to see Marianne Williamson and RFK have a discussion. They don't even have to call it debate, because from what I understand, if you have a debate, you're automatically disqualified, even though they're not doing it. They're not doing it now anyway. But anyway, let's call it a discussion. They should be having a tour, going out and saying, hey, the DNC is not including us, so we're going to work together and have a tour. Now, I know RFK has gone down in the polls, but when he was up, he probably was smelling himself, like we like to say in my community, and he probably was like, I'm not even going to look at Marianne. But now that he's came down, they're pretty much neck and neck. They should come together, coalesce, bring forth their policies, have a discussion, talk about the differences. And like we just talked about Medicare for all, he's for a public option, she's for Medicare for all. I would love to hear their discussion on how they would move forward with healthcare, period. And that would get a lot of, at least me as a political junkie, I would definitely watch that, and that could help promote and push their campaigns together. So that's how I think people can come together on different sides.
So for Forced to Vote is a perfect sort of illustration of the point of the issue we have here. We have the issue of Medicare for all, or just Medicare for all is not the only issue. I'm just saying of how we can't get anything accomplished, even though we have these overlapping beliefs. And I'm saying Force the Vote is a classic example of why. So we have Force the Vote, which is literally a movement. So ask yourself, why did certain people not participate in Force the Vote? There was an array of a bunch of reasons, but let me take the petty reasons out, like the Jimmy Dore reasons. Let's listen to some of their more substantive sort of critiques. Oh, it's not going to accomplish anything. Oh, it's going to hurt. It's all about strategy that prevented certain people from participating. So this is, again, the issue that I'm saying we have, is that if we can't come up with a strategy that everybody agrees, we are never going to have that a case. There has to be a strategy that is palatable to both sides. And
But
I
would
don't
even say,
know what that is, but go ahead.
I would even say this, CJ, that when Force the Vote did happen, and they had people who were for it. You know, Sam Cedar famously was for it at first, and then he was against it. And then they had a legendary debate. I really enjoyed the debate, but I really liked how Katie Helper came together and brought different voices together on a panel, and they were able to discuss different strategies and add to not just trying to force Medicare for all vote for Nancy Pelosi, to give a vote to Nancy Pelosi, but David Dayen, I believe it was David Dayen, or somebody else that brought in other ideas as well on getting somebody on this committee. And now we saw that the Freedom Caucus took they learned from those ideas, and they ran with it with having their leader, only one person needs to vote, and they can bring up a vote for his leadership, along with a plethora of other demands that they got out of that situation. So they learned from it. So now it's our turn to learn from this situation, and I think this is a way that we can definitely learn and strategize.
How about, let's bring in some of the others. Brooke, Chuck, Hector. What are your thoughts on some of these ideas that we're talking about here? What are your thoughts? Whoever wants to chime in here.
I kind of wanted to jump in because this is like my topic du jour, is like leftist cohesion, and I think it's really what holds us back. And I have this conversation with a lot of different people of that. You don't have this problem on the right, because the right is very good at, even if I don't agree with you, I'm gonna shut the fuck up and go with what we're doing right now. And once we get to the goal that we've achieved, then we can hash out all these disagreements and why I didn't agree with that, or how we're going to iron out the details. On the left, I feel like we really have no cohesion. You know, like Case is talking about, we have this left ecosystem, and it's a big ecosystem, but the most defining trait in the ecosystem is people are willing to shit on one another rather than get on board with, you know, we're shooting towards a goal. Can we agree that until we hit this goal, no more shitting on each other, or at least let's move in lockstep towards the goal until we get to the point that we've made some progress, and we could say to each other, okay, now we could sit down and talk about the things that we disagreed on the way to this goal. But to me, the left has way too much infighting, way too many plagiarists. There's people who come into the left later for you to find out that they're right wingers. You know, Tulsi was mentioned before. I could think of Jackson Hinkle's another one. I could think of a whole bunch of other ones.
He is a definite one.
Right, people who come in trying to say I'm the leftiest left in the world, this, then a third. Once you look under the hood, they're talking about MAGA and all these right wing ideas and anti-LGBTQ. So part of the left wing ecosystem. And I truly believe this, that if we had more cohesion, if we had some of that cohesion that they have on the right to say, you know, maybe I don't agree with everything, but we have a target. Let's shut the fuck up, not shit on each other, and get to this target before we can start arguing with each other. We would sort of scale out a lot of the plagiarists and the scammers and the people who come to our side pretending to be something that they're really not. And once we hit these goals, then we could turn around and amongst each other iron out these differences, because that's what I find is holding us back, really, is that we don't have the cohesion, we don't have the unity, we don't move in unison the way that the right does. Force the Issue was a great example. I think a lot of these rallies are really good examples of people agree with the goal, but then they start arguing amongst each other about how do we get to this goal? Are you going to make the left at this street or the right at the next street? And it's not about that. Let's get to our destination. Then we could talk about what route we took here and the best way to get here again. So I could talk all day about this stuff because leftist cohesion is sort of like my topic to fix. But I think that if we could get to a point where we at least could agree on a target and move in unison towards that target, we would work out a lot of the other internal problems that the left has.
Great point. Before I ask another question, I want to get just your thoughts from if Chuck or Brooke, if you have an opinion on it. If you don't, then I can just insert my question. But go ahead, Chuck, and I guess we can go to Brooke and see if she has something after.
Well, Brooke, you want to go first? Because I do have thoughts, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, there's an old saying in coalition building that there's no permanent friends, no permanent enemies. And I think that on social media, I think we spend too much time trying to find and identify people we don't like to find the smaller and smaller reasons why we can't like somebody, and then we ignore them. And that is to our detriment. Our whole enterprise is about winning with the most votes. And when we go on social media, we tend to do the opposite thing, which is, how small can I define myself? Because I'm a Maoist with Marxist tendencies. I read a lot of critical theory, and yet it just gets smaller and smaller and more obtuse. And so I think that I don't know, and I don't know how to get there because we've acquired these habits of giving each other hell and blocking each other and all that stuff.
Yes. Yes, to what Brooke just said. I'm a reformed liberal, and when I started becoming a leftist, I didn't realize there were like 37 different camps of leftists. I'm like, can we just say anti-establishment? So we'll get to the other stuff later, And I'm like, wow, it's ridiculous at some point. And appreciate what Case said, and Hector was speaking to my soul on the left division. I'm old school. I got a problem. I'm gonna DM you. Hey, let's see if we can hash this out on the side. Two activists who I love at each other's throats. Hey, can you work that out on the side? I know sometimes the principles are too hard, but a lot of times it's not about principles. A lot of times it's petty, and we can figure that out. And I remember when I was covering the Medicare for All rally, I had people up in my DMs. Why are you covering that, Chuck? Why are you going over there? And they would name there are hundreds of speakers, and 5% or less of the speakers you didn't like. Come on, I'm interviewing people telling me about how their wife died from cancer. This is the interview I'm getting. My wife died from cancer. This is why she couldn't get the attention. Isn't that a little bit more important than you didn't like less than 5% of the speakers? Can we keep our eyes on the prize? Because I hear privilege talking. I hear someone with really good health care talking. I don't hear the issue. So I've always had a low patience for that. I'm not saying there are no lines. There are some lines, as you said earlier. While I covered Medicare for All, there were certain things about raising up the war machine. There are lines, but it can't be every time we disagree. It can't be every time someone says something we don't like. We have to keep our eye on the prize. So I'm Hector. I'm actually very interested in left cohesion and how to make that happen. And I think we discussed that on our last call, CJ, about a lot of people at each other's throats and forgetting the eyes on the prize. And that is different than a deep, deep philosophical disagreement.
I just wanted to put emphasis on the ecosystem metaphor because, in the wild, people they say, I'm scared of lions. Well, we should kill all the lions because we want to make this place safe. So you kill all the lions, but guess what? Now the deers are going to overpopulate because the lions were keeping the deer population at a good level. So we all need each other to a certain degree. And we, like Hector said, we need to stop shitting on each other and make sure that if anyone has a strategy, even if you disagree, you could hit people up on the side, like my man Chuck said. Or if you just disagree, I like the best thing to do if you disagree, just keep support with silence. Just have solidarity with silence. Say, hey, God bless. If that works out, then maybe I'll come in and help you out in a certain way. But other than, and I could call, what's the guy's name? Jack Uger's cousin or nephew.
Hassan.
Yeah, I was disappointed when he was one of the people that was like, oh, these guys don't know what they're doing, and just basically shitting on the Medicare for All support. And that's something that was unnecessary, and that's like punching down in a way, because these people work. It's not easy. It's not. I didn't even organize it, but I could tell. I know doing other organizing, trying to organize my own initiatives is not easy. And people put a lot of effort. People raise money, and we need to be able to support each other, even if you don't necessarily support the strategy. But we need to find ways to have solidarity.